He is an innovator, entrepreneur, and a man of many firsts. His early interest in computers inspired him to start his own computer company at the age of 16. He blazed the trail for 3D graphics and created the world's first 3D chip with Nintendo. He was awarded the first OBE in the video game industry. He is the founder of PKR, a cutting-edge online poker company.
I've been working with Jez for 7 years, and it's been an absolute wonderful roller coaster ride. He is, one of the most charismatic and innovative people in the industry by far.
He's been passionate about his brand and passionate about what they've done, and has not sacrificed over time, which I think is a very admirable quality.
He's great fun. He loves what he does, and his passion comes across in everything that he does.
I spent some time with Jez in his digital penthouse and home office in London's Camden Town. We talked about his current business, his personal interests, and his journey to where he is today.
Right now, PKR is a household brand name in the poker world, the online poker world. How does this fit into the plan that you had when you first launched the company? I mean, what things are now, how does that compare to what you thought they'd be back then?
When I first started PKR, the goal was to try and get as close to real live poker as we could. I mean, I was playing poker with my friends, and it was a very different feel of game to when I was playing online. And online it was all about cards and numbers, and when you play with your friends it's all about making fun of each other and having a laugh and being more social. So I tried to come up with a poker idea that would be there'll be more about the fun aspect, more about the, what it's really like to play poker with your friends. On PKR, your actual avatar is not just a picture of you or a picture of something. It is actually a real 3D person that you instruct how you want it to act. The game of PKR is about playing poker but having fun and being social. So we want to take it into the places where people do that. And that is definitely, mobile is the primary way, and everyone is now using their mobile phones and their tablets to play games. Some of them are even second screening, they're like watching TV, and at the same time they have an iPad or an iPhone on their lap and they're playing a game. So we're appealing to more of the mass market by doing that. We started from nothing. We were one of the last poker companies to launch. We came up with something that was different, and that's allowed us to survive in a very competitive world.
Jez may be an innovator in the online poker industry, but when he was younger, his true passion was in computers. He received his first of many in 1978.
I was self-taught. I learned BASIC and then assembly language programming very early, and I wrote initially games for myself, and then when I was 16 I took a summer job writing games for one of the first computer games companies, and I started my company at 16. I started the computer games company Argonaut.
It sounds like you're involved in a lot of firsts. You said you were one of the first computers. I know also you were, I want to say, a wizard.
I was the first external wizard, they called it, because it was hosted at University of Essex. Dr. Richard Bartle was the inventor of it. And all the other players, and particularly all the other wizards, were internal university students at University of Essex. But myself and a few friends had figured out how to hack the networks back then so that we could connect to it and play it from outside. I was the first wizard, but there were plenty more. And it was fun. It was a good introduction to multiplayer gaming, because that was the first multiplayer game. My first 3D game was called Star Glider, and it was a big hit, and that was in the 80s, and that made me a lot of money. And unlike my fellow computer game developers of the day, I didn't keep the money. I used it to invest in the company, and I started a team, and then we went. So it was one of the first computer game developers, because it wasn't just me on my own in my bedroom. It became 10 people, and then 20, and then 30 people, and so on. So it was organically grown, and it was just with no investment from outside. It was just purely the success of the games grew the company.
I think you had some pretty big name contracts. You had some work for Nintendo, I think it was. Tell me about that.
We had reverse engineered the Game Boy and the Super Nintendo systems and figured out how they worked without their help. And then we had built 3D games. Both of them were kind of versions of the game I'd done previously called Starglider. And we'd reverse engineered these systems and done the impossible and built 3D games on them. And then I went to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and I walked up to the highest level person I could find at Nintendo and whipped out the Game Boy weeks after it had just come out, and no one was developing games for it. I showed them our 3D game on it, and they were just blown away. And I got a phone call literally the day I got back saying, "You're flying to Kyoto, we want you to meet the president of Nintendo, Mr. Yamauchi, and we want to talk to you about doing something together." This was my first big business deal, and I was sat in front of the godfather-like boss of Nintendo, Jez San. He said, "We want to work with you, we want to do some 3D games, how much do you want?" And this was at my point, I thought of the biggest number I could possibly think of and said $2 million, which for a 21-year-old living at home, no expenses, obviously I have to hire a team to do this work, was the biggest number I could possibly think of. And he just said, yes. And I knew then I could have asked for $10 million or $100 million, and he probably would have also said yes. So that was my that was my opportunity to think big, and I didn't think big enough. After that, we formed a relationship, and we built some of the first 3D games on console, actually the first 3D games on the games consoles, but we also designed the first 3D chip that made the Super Nintendo do 3D graphics.
After putting in many hours over the years, Jez now enjoys his hobbies and spending time with his young family.
I think when I was younger, I would work 24 hours a day. I would rarely sleep. I would be up all night. I would, regularly pull multi-nighters. Now I don't. Now I have, 4 kids, family. So now I'm not working all hours, but I still keep a kind of a late hour. I'm working all the time, really, because I'm not in the office, so I have a home office, and I take calls and emails day and night. But it's not as intensive as it used to be. So now I've got a very good team running the company. They don't really need me, but I help out where I can, and I come up with good ideas and sometimes bad ideas, and let them see what they think of them.
Can you pinpoint the time in your life when you were able to make that transition?
It's very difficult when you're an entrepreneur and you start new companies. It's very difficult to let go of the reins and let someone else take over. And so I've got it wrong many times in the past and brought people in too early or too late. So I think it's a work in progress to try and get the right balance.
Jez's success story is proof that developing a career and lifestyle around your passion can lead to great things. Add to that an ability to recognize strengths and weaknesses, a kind nature, and a strong passion for innovation, and you have the formula for success.